Well, I do think that the nature of teaching is changing because of this situation, this circumstance, and I think that correspondingly the process of teacher education has to change. I don't know the situation in Argentina all that well, but in my own country I have to say that the process of teacher education has been slow to adapt to the changing circumstances of teaching itself. For example, if we think that technology is becoming more and more an important part of the classroom, that teachers have to be able to navigate, then technology has to be a bigger part of the teacher education process itself. And at my university, which I think considers itself to be a pretty technologically sophisticated university, I think that in fact technology doesn't play as big a part in the teacher education process as it should. I think teachers need to live and breathe technology. They have to be completely comfortable with it. And I think they leave their teacher education programs still needing to really learn about how to use and adapt technology for their classrooms, or they learn more about it once they actually start teaching than they did at university. And one reason is because many of us who are teacher educators were not ourselves trained through technology. And so it requires us to adapt our ways of teaching at the university to reflect more the ways that we want our teachers to teach. It's changing very slowly. I think it's changing too slowly in my country. And I mean, I can't speak for Argentina. It's not that different here. I think it's a dangerous idea for several reasons. One is my own view of technology, which is that no technology solves a problem without creating a new problem. So I could give you many examples of that, but I mean, take the automobile. The automobile solved some really important problems, and the automobile has created lots of new freedoms and opportunities for us as a society over the last 100 years or so. But the automobile has also created a lot of problems. I think that's the story of technology. It's created to solve one problem, but we don't always anticipate the new problems that it creates. So technology is not going to solve all of education's problems without creating new problems, including the problem of the digital divide, of the difference or the gap in access between people who have access to the technology and the people who don't. That problem, the digital divide, isn't itself a technological problem. It's a problem of economics, it's a problem of investment, it's a problem of social opportunities more generally, and it's not going to be solved just by technologies. The second reason why I think it's a dangerous idea is that the problems of schools are not only problems of technology, and not all the problems that schools face can be solved through technologies. So again, gaps in funding by the state between different schools, gaps in the preparation of the kids who come to the school, gaps in the involvement of parents in their kids' schooling, and many, many other sources of inequality in society are not themselves technological problems and won't be solved by technology. So if we think that changing technology will solve these other problems, the danger is that we won't give enough attention as a society to these other sources of inequality in education, which are not themselves technological problems. One problem is the same as when I wrote the book, and that is, I've already touched on it, and that's the problem of the digital divide. If anything, it's an even more serious problem today, because a life without technology today is a life without access to a lot of things, educationally, in terms of political participation, access to the news, access to job opportunities that are even more constraining than they were when I wrote that book. So that's one danger. I also think that as technologies have become more and more a pervasive part of more and more things that we do, the dangers of surveillance, of a loss of privacy, the dangers of the government and corporations collecting information about us have become, I think, even more severe, because the amount of our lives that is online has grown and grown. The amount of information about us that we don't control that is collected about us online has grown and grown. And so I think that issue is, if anything, even a more serious issue than it was when we wrote the book. I talk and write a lot these days about what I call ubiquitous learning. And the idea there is that learning is no longer confined to the school or the classroom. That we learn in more and more places. It's anytime, anywhere. When you carry the internet in your pocket, you can be learning more or less continually. At least the opportunity to learn is there more or less continually. So the school of the future will have to be much more connected with all the other places where learning happens. The media, the home, the workplace, the library, the coffee house, all the places where learning is happening that aren't necessarily part of the school itself. I think it's more and more important for the school to establish a relationship with these other learning environments or learning contexts, because schools don't have a monopoly anymore at controlling or shaping that learning. And I don't think schools can succeed at what they are trying to do without realizing and connecting to the other learning that's going on in these other places for young people. So the school of the future is, I often describe it as the hub of a wheel with spokes, so that the school is still central, but it's connected to other places where learning is happening. So the school of the future is itself, I think, going to be a much more connected space. And where it both brings into it learning that takes place elsewhere, but also sends out its learning goals or activities into these other environments. And the nature of the hubs are portable technologies themselves. The mobility of the computer, the handheld device, the laptop, the smartphone, whatever shape these technologies have, is to be much more mobile. And so the technologies will allow more movement back and forth between that traditional learning space that we call the school and all these other less traditional learning spaces.